On the day of Chernenko's death, a Politburo meeting took place where Romanov spoke first, nominating Grishin per Chernenko's will. Alexander Yakovlev, the architect of Perestroika, also wrote of a similar scenario, noting that Chernenko's inner circle had already prepared speeches and a political program for Grishin. Yet Dokuyev added that after Romanov's speech that day, Gromyko stood up and said we had enough of carrying coffins, it was time to promote young talent with a vision for the next decade or more. He insisted on Gorbachev, who was elected general secretary by a single vote margin. There's another version claiming that it was the foreign minister Andrei Gromyko who first opposed Grishin's candidacy, but KGB chairman General Viktor Chabrikov. Grishin then promptly withdrew himself and suggested Romanov for the vacant general secretary post. At this pivotal moment in the Politburo meeting, Gromyko allegedly took the floor, arguing that the Defense Central Committee secretary's surname was utterly unfit, convincing everyone that only Gorbachev could take the role. However, direct participants of those events paint a starkly different picture in their memoirs. Chief Kremlin physician academician Evgeny Chezov asserts that right after Chernenko's death on March 10 at 7:20 p.m., he called Gorbachev at his dacha and realized from the talk that he'd already devised a full plan to seize power. Gorbachev said had now convened the Politburo and Secretariat and asked Chezov to arrive at the Kremlin by 10 p.m. He then contacted Gromyko, Council of Ministers Chairman Nikolai Tikhonov, and Central Committee General Department head Klavdiy Bogolyubov, instructing the latter to gather all top leadership in the Kremlin by 10 p.m. as well. At that moment, only 6 of the 10 Politburo members were in the capital: Heydar Aliyev, Mikhail Gorbachev, Viktor Grishin, Andrei Gromyko, Mikhail Solomentsev, and Nikolai Tikhonov. The other 4 were absent. Vitaly Vorotnikov, Resser Council of Ministers chairman, was visiting Yugoslavia. Dinmuhamed Kunev, first secretary of Kazakhstan's Communist Party, was in Alma-Ata. Grigory Romanov, PSU Central Committee secretary, was vacationing in Pelonga, and Vladimir Shabitsky, first secretary of Ukraine's Communist Party, was leading a Soviet delegation in the USA. Besides Politburo members, all candidates were in Moscow. Acting Supreme Soviet Presidium Chairman Vasily Kuznetsov, Culture Minister Pyotr Demichev, PSU Secretaries Vladimir Dolgik and Boris Ponomaryov, KGB Chairman Viktor Chabrikov, and Georgia's Communist Party First Secretary Edward Shevardnadze, plus all ordinary Central Committee Secretaries Ivan Kapitanov, Mikhail Zimyanin, Konstantin Rusakov, Yegor Ligachev, and Nikolai Ryzkov. Gorbachev claims that upon arriving at the Kremlin, Gromyko was already there, and half an hour before the meeting, they had a brief but crucial talk. He invited Gromyko to join forces at this critical juncture, and Gromyko replied that he fully shared my views and agreed to act together. Yet, when the Politburo meeting began, Grishin and Tikhonov immediately opposed Gorbachev chairing it, showing that the party leadership lacked the solid unity Gorbachev's allies later claimed. Even Gromyko's shift to Gorbachev's trench didn't secure him a majority, as Shabitsky, Kunev, and Romanov were clearly not on the future Gensec's side. One might think the Politburo meeting should have been set for the next day. But Gorbachev and Chabrikov, likely with Gromyko's backing, chose to push events forward, attempting to install Gorbachev as Gensec that evening. The effort failed, and they only managed to appoint him chairman of Chernenko's funeral commission. Many memoirists and the Politburo's working notes from March 11, 1985, confirmed this was the sole decision then. Ultimately, Gorbachev suggested not rushing, scheduling the plenum for 5 p.m. the next day and the Politburo for 2 p.m., giving everyone a night and half a day to think it over and weigh things before deciding at the Politburo and taking it to the Central Committee plenum. As Gorbachev and Ligachev later recalled, after the Politburo meeting ended at 11 p.m., only they and KGB chief Chabrikov remained from the top leadership tier at work. Soon, Central Committee staff summoned by them began arriving, instantly forming to document preparation groups. The first, drafting morning materials for Chernenko, was led by his aides Pachenev, Pribykov, and Volsky, plus deputy org party work head Rezimov. The second, hastily crafting the new Gensec's Central Committee plenum report, included Lukyanov, Medvedev, Zagladin, and Alexandrov Agentov. Much now hinged on whether Vorotnikov, Romanov, Shabitsky, and Kunev, whose stances could decide everything, would make it to the next Politburo meeting. It turns out a special operation of disinformation and delay was launched against the latter 3 to prevent their timely arrival in Moscow. Meanwhile, Vladimir Kryakov, then deputy, later KGB chairman, claims Gromyko confessed to him shortly before his death. After Chernenko's passing, comrades urged me to focus on party work and agree to become PSU Central Committee General Secretary. I declined, believing a purely party role wasn't for me. Notably, these events likely prompted Ligachev's statement at the 19-party conference in June 1988, "We must tell the whole truth. Those were anxious days. Entirely different decisions were possible. The danger was real." Thanks to the firm stance of Politburo members Chabrikov, Solomentsev, Gromyko, and many regional first secretaries, the March Central Committee plenum made the only right choice. Both then and later, memoirists and historians mocked this claim by the PSU's second secretary, citing Gorbachev's typical third-person remark that after Chernenko's death, Gorbachev's election became inevitable. Yet Ligachev was right. Under different circumstances, especially if Gromyko hadn't allied with Gorbachev, entirely different decisions could have prevailed. In his memoirs, he notably recalled that on the morning of March 11, Gromyko called him, asking, "Who will we choose as General Secretary?" Ligachev named Gorbachev, adding that many regional first secretaries and Central Committee members share this mood. Gromyko then said he deproposed Gorbachev at the Politburo and asked for a detailed bio to be sent to the Foreign Ministry. Ligachev immediately called Gorbachev to relay this conversation. While the minutes of the Politburo meeting on March 10, 1985, remain unknown, the working notes from its March 11 session, recorded by then First Deputy of the Central Committee's General Department Lukyanov, not only survived but were published. This document reveals that the Politburo meeting, chaired by Gorbachev, included comrades Aliyev, Vorotnikov, Grishin, Gromyko, Kunev, Romanov, Solomentsev, Tikhonov. Also present was the new USSR Defense Minister, Marshal Sergei Sokolov. Thus, the only absentee was Ukraine's Soviet leader Shabitsky, who failed to return from the U.S. In time and absence, Gorbachev and his allies greatly feared. Much later, Gorbachev's aide Valery Boldin admitted that this delay in departing Washington was orchestrated by Chabrikov's KGB guys, while Professor Ostrovsky established that they were significantly aided by guys from the U.S. State Department and ANSA, including Jack Matlock, then an aide to Ronald Reagan and head of the NSA's Europe and USSR Department. Moreover, reports suggest Chabrikov personally contacted Shabitsky's security chief, Colonel Vakulenko, ordering him to withhold news of Chernenko's death from his charge until further notice. At 3 p.m., opening the Politburo meeting, Gorbachev again gave the floor to Chezov, who reported that Konstantin Ustinovich had been on sick leave in recent months, but the illness resisted treatment. It worsened especially due to bilateral pneumonia, contracted while he was resting in Kislovodsk. Emphysema and worsening pulmonary heart failure sharply intensified over the last 2 to 3 weeks. Growing dystrophic changes in organs and tissues led to him losing consciousness at 3 p.m. despite active therapy, and at 7:20 p.m., death occurred due to cardiac arrest. After this, Gorbachev spoke again, stating, "We must first address the issue of the PSU Central Committee General Secretary. I ask comrades to share their views, as prearranged." Gromyko spoke first, declaring outright, "When you think of a candidate for PSU Central Committee General Secretary, you naturally think of Mikhail Sergeyevich Gorbachev." Later, Ligachev slyly claimed, "It all happened instantly, unexpectedly. I don't even recall if he requested the floor or not." Following the foreign minister, others Tikhonov, Grishin, Solomentsev, Kunev, Aliyev, Romanov, and so on spoke, their words ringing with hymns and odes to the new Gensec. Ligachev, comparing this to the previous day's meeting, confirmed the Gensec question wasn't settled earlier, how unlike the prior meeting held just the evening before. At 5 p.m., the extraordinary Central Committee plenum opened, where Gorbachev announced the agenda and immediately yielded to Comrade Gromyko. Per Chernev's account, Gromyko took the podium and spoke freely without notes, and when he named Gorbachev, the hall erupted in ovation rivaling that for Andropov's election. The Central Committee then promptly passed the on the PSU Central Committee General Secretary resolution. Romanov, chairing this plenum, gave the floor to Gorbachev, who, now as Gensec, delivered his throne speech and invited those present to proceed to the Column Hall to bid farewell to Chernenko.